Hello everyone, this is my 1992 Yamaha Virago XV750D. Last year, always had this front cylinder starting issue, and once it was warm it ran fine. I got about 6,000 miles out of it last summer until the beginning of this winter after I had stored it. It started up and ran for a little while and then started causing me a lot of grief. Started running off only the front cylinder, and then the rear cylinder wasn't working, and it just kept going back and forth, and decided it was time to learn how to take the carbs out and rebuild them. Never have done anything to a Virago before until this one, or any motorcycle for that matter. I took the carbs apart, cleaned them really well, and put it back together, and it seemed to be running fine. Put new plugs. Then it started with the front cylinder misfire again, and after a little ways down the road, it crapped out on me. Not sure, I believe it overheated, probably because it was running too lean. The air mixture screws on top of the carburetor, right next to the vacuum chamber, Venturi. I didn't use a depth micrometer to see how deep the head of the screw was, so I had to loosen it to, get rid of the corrosion. And while doing that, I noticed that one was really tight, and I decided it was just time to buy a rebuild kit. I put the Jardine Rumblers on the bike last year, and I didn't rejet the carbs. All 6,000 miles of last summer with these pipes were with stock jets and needles. So this year, when I found out that the carburetor was easy to take apart, and I didn't feel like doing it last year because it was running, they say if it's not broken, don't fix it. Well, this year it was broken, so I had to fix it. So when I found out how to put jets and needles in, I replaced them with the Dynojet needles, and now this thing has lots of power, and it rides amazing. But getting to the point, I rebuilt the carburetors. I'm sorry, let me go back a little bit. After I thought I had everything cleaned and working, it started up all the time, but I noticed flames coming right out of the rear cylinder pipe, and mixture screw did absolutely nothing. Went to some help at a local motorcycle place, and they said check your oil. If you have too much fuel going into your chamber, the combustion chamber, the pressure on the combustion stroke, on the pressure, the pressure stroke, it's going to force gasoline through the rings straight into the crankcase. Well, when I dumped my oil, I noticed there was probably about a quart more oil than it needed, and it was ridiculously thin. It was like black water. So I changed the oil, and I rebuilt the carburetors by replacing all the jets from the rebuild kits. And the rebuild kit was online, and they'll confuse you on eBay. If you're going to spend $20-something on a kit, it's for one side of the carburetor only. A full carburetor setup replacement kit is going to cost around $45, give or take. And so we got the kits, I changed the oil, and now I've gone 40 miles without any problems. However, I do get a backfire and a light flame, very, very subtle flame coming from the rear cylinder pipe every so often on the down throttle. Even if I crack it really quickly and open it wide and just let the RPMs come down, it may or may not do it. Something tells me there might be extra air, not sure. But these carburetors are held into the heads by what everybody on the internet is calling them carb holders. They have a flange with two screws, but then that goes to a rubber inlet that will have a hose clamp around it to secure the carburetor. So if you can see Not very easy to see, but right there is the manifold and the carb being held in. Well, behind those, on each one, there is an O-ring. And I think the O-ring on the rear cylinder carb holder has a nick in it, and it's allowing enough suction just to backfire the gas. The plugs look to be very healthy. I'm horrible at deciding if a plug is healthy or not, other than the fact if it's completely black or completely white from either being too rich or too lean. So maybe my confusion when I'm looking at it means that it's okay. I'm going with that because the bike is running absolutely fine, minus this backfiring issue. It's just a little bit of popping. It's not even severe. But the fact that the bike is running smoothly, idling smoothly, and there's 0 misfires. If anybody has any questions about any misfiring or anything backfiring, make sure your oil is fresh and at the right level, and just make sure that your carburetor is very clean, and make sure you have good plugs. If any of these are not correct on your bike, just change them. And for what it's worth, carburetor adjustment could be the only thing you have to do. But I like to go the opposite way. I like to start by getting new pieces, just because I think that it's worth doing that. The bike is going to wear out at some point and need new parts. At this point, this bike is about 92, it's like 20-something years old now, and it needed new parts. So I noticed when I was taking out the float needles in the float seat needle seat, there was just a pile of brown powder in both fuel inlets of the carburetor. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to be there. That was a joke. So I didn't even soak it. I just only replaced the gasket for the bowls. I didn't adjust any float levels, and no float levels were adjusted. The only adjustment I made was the mixture screws. They say on the Virago Tech forum that the fuel mixture screw with stock needles and jets is to be 2.5 turns out. You start with 2.5 turns, let the bike run, and while it's running, you turn the needle in until you hear the engine start to fumble. And as soon as you hear that, back it out 1/4 turn, and that should be a perfect ratio for the stock needles. I couldn't figure that out because I had so much oil and gasoline in my engine crank case that it was just causing a flamethrower to appear from the rear cylinder. And by the time I changed the oil and rebuilt the carbs, I had just put the Dynojet needles in, and the Dynojet even tells you to softly seat your needle mixture screw and turn it out 1.5 turns. And that goes the same, I forgot to mention, with your stock needle and jet. You want to turn the needle down to a soft seat and then back it out 2.5. Don't crank it until it is super tight. There's an O-ring underneath the screw that is also there's also a spring around the needle, and underneath the spring there's an O-ring, and if you crank that down too much, there's a good chance you'll squish it. You can crack it, you can pinch it, slice it. Rubber doesn't like too much pressure. So I believe, back to my point of right now why it's not misfiring, but why there's a little bit of a flame coming out of the pipe, I believe the rear carb holder might have the nick. And the O-ring for those I got on eBay for both for $7. So once those come in, I'm going to replace those. And at that point, the bike is going to have every rubber part replaced, minus the carb holders, because they are still in great shape. Just the O-rings are a little flat. None of the rubber is broken down. And and I learned, don't ever spray carb cleaner in a carb if you still have some rubber parts in the carb. I knew not to do it with the diaphragms. I had those far away. But there was an O-ring around the float needle seat, and let's just say I sprayed directly in there to clean it out. never cleaned a carburetor, so I made some rookie mistakes and got lucky and was able to fix everything that I may have possibly done wrong. In any event, it has been a long month and a half wanting to set the bike on fire, kick it over, give it away, everything else but fix it, and I realized this is the only bike I have, and it's the only bike I'm going to have for a long time, so I made sure that this thing is working for this summer, and it seems to be running great, and I'll start it up for you. She sounds wonderful. I'll try to get that flame to pop out of the pipe for you. You can see what I'm talking about. Okay, I couldn't see anything. It didn't do it. It's very intermittent. But I'm going to rule the fact that this bike is back to normal. It's fixed. And I am very excited for this season to start. And 2 wheels are better than 4. Thank you for watching. I hope any of my information has helped you out. And good luck with your motorcycles. Ride safe.